Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Republic of Ireland. Ireland, also described as the Republic of Ireland, is a sovereign state in northwestern Europe occupying 26 of 32 counties of the island of Ireland. The capital and largest city is Dublin, which is located on the eastern part of the island, and whose metropolitan area is home to around a third of the country's 4.75 million inhabitants. The state shares its only land border with Northern Ireland, a part of the United Kingdom. It is otherwise surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean, with the Celtic Sea to the south, St. George Channel to the southeast, and the Irish Sea to the east. It is a unitary, parliamentary republic. The legislature, consists of a lower house, an upper house, and an elected president who serves as the largely ceremonial head of state, but with some important powers and duties. The head of government is who is elected by the Dáil and appointed by the president. The Taoiseach in turn appoints other government ministers. The state was created as the Irish Free State in 1922 as a result of the Anglo-Irish Treaty. It had the status of Dominion until 1937, when a new constitution was adopted, in which the state was named Ireland and effectively became a republic, with an elected non-executive president as head of state. It was officially declared a republic in 1949, following the Republic of Ireland Act 1948. Ireland became a member of the United Nations in December 1955. It joined the European Economic Community, the predecessor of the European Union, in 1973. The state had no formal relations with Northern Ireland for most of the 20th century, but during the 1980s and 1990s the British and Irish governments worked with the Northern Ireland parties towards a resolution to the Troubles. Since the signing of the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, the Irish government and Northern Ireland executive have cooperated on a number of policy areas under the North-South Ministerial Council created by the agreement. Ireland ranks among the top 25 wealthiest countries in the world in terms of GDP per capita, and is the 10th most prosperous country in the world according to the Legatum Prosperity Index 2015. After joining the EEC, Ireland enacted a series of liberal economic policies that resulted in rapid economic growth. The country achieved considerable prosperity between the years of 1995 and 2007, which became known as the Celtic Tiger period. This was halted by an unprecedented financial crisis that began in 2008, in conjunction with the concurrent global economic crash. However, as the Irish economy was the fastest growing in the EU in 2015, Ireland is again quickly ascending league tables comparing wealth and prosperity internationally. For example, in 2015, Ireland was ranked as the joint 6th most developed country in the world by the United Nations Human Development Index. It also performs well in several national performance metrics, including freedom of the press, economic freedom and civil liberties. Ireland is a member of the European Union, and is a founding member of the Council of Europe and the OECD. The Irish government has followed a policy of military neutrality through non-alignment since immediately prior to World War II, and the country is consequently not a member of NATO, although it is a member in Partnership for Peace. Name: the 1922 state, comprising 26 of the 32 counties of Ireland, was styled and known as the Irish Free State. The Constitution of Ireland, adopted in 1937, provides that the name of the state is or, in the English language, Ireland. Section 2 of the Republic of Ireland Act 1948 states, It is hereby declared that the description of the state shall be the Republic of Ireland. The 1948 Act does not name the state as Republic of Ireland, because to have done so would have put it in conflict with the Constitution. The government of the United Kingdom used the name and, from 1949, Republic of Ireland, for the state. It was not until the 1998 Good Friday Agreement that it used the name Ireland, as well as Ireland, or the Republic of Ireland. The state is also referred to as the Republic, Southern Ireland, or the South. In an Irish Republican context, it is often referred to as the Free State or the 26 counties. Home Rule movement. From the Act of Union on 1 January 1801, until 6 December 1922, the island of Ireland was part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. During the Great Famine, from 1845 to 1849, the island's population of over 8 million fell by 30%. 1 million Irish died of starvation and/or disease, and another 1.5 million emigrated, mostly to the United States. This set the pattern of emigration for the century to come, resulting in a constant population decline up to the 1960s. From 1874, and particularly under Charles Stewart Parnell from 1880, the Irish Parliamentary Party gained prominence. This was firstly through widespread agrarian agitation via the Irish Land League, that won land reforms for tenants in the form of the Irish Land Acts, and secondly through its attempts to achieve Home Rule, via two unsuccessful bills which would have granted Ireland limited national autonomy. These led to grassroots control of national affairs, under the Local Government Act 1898, that had been in the hands of landlord-dominated grand juries of the Protestant ascendancy. Home Rule seemed certain when the Parliament Act 1911 abolished the veto of the House of Lords, and John Redmond secured the Third Home Rule Act in 1914. However, the Unionist movement had been growing since 1886 among Irish Protestants after the introduction of the first Home Rule Bill, fearing discrimination and loss of economic and social privileges if Irish Catholics achieved real political power. In the late 19th and early 20th century, Unionism was particularly strong in parts of Ulster, where industrialization was more common in contrast to the more agrarian rest of the island. It was feared that any tariff barriers would heavily affect that region. In addition, the Protestant population was more prominent in Ulster, with a majority in 4 counties. Under the leadership of the Dublin-born Sir Edward Carson of the Irish Unionist Party, and the Ulsterman Sir James Craig of the Ulster Unionist Party, Unionists became strongly militant in order to oppose the coercion of Ulster. After the Home Rule Bill passed Parliament in May 1914, to avoid rebellion with Ulster, the British Prime Minister H. Asquith introduced an amending bill reluctantly conceded to by the Irish Party leadership. This provided for the temporary exclusion of Ulster from the workings of the bill for a trial period of 6 years, with an as yet undecided new set of measures to be introduced for the area to be temporarily excluded. Revolution and steps to independence. Though it received the royal assent and was placed on the statute books in 1914, the implementation of the Third Home Rule Act was suspended until after the First World War, which diffused the threat of civil war in Ireland, with hope of ensuring the implementation of the Act. At the end of the war, through Ireland's engagement in the war, Redmond and his Irish National Volunteers supported Britain and its allies. 175,000 men joined Irish regiments of the 10th and 16th Divisions of the new British Army. while Unionists joined the 36th Divisions. The remainder of the Irish volunteers, who opposed any support of Britain, launched an armed insurrection against British rule in the 1916 Easter Rising, together with the Irish Citizen Army. This commenced on 24 April 1916, with the Declaration of Independence. After a week of heavy fighting, primarily in Dublin, the surviving rebels were forced to surrender their positions. The majority were imprisoned, but 15 of the prisoners were executed as traitors to Britain. This included Patrick Pearse, the spokesman for the Rising and who provided the signal to the volunteers to start the Rising, as well as James Connolly, socialist and founder of the Industrial Workers of the World Union, and both the Irish and Scottish labour movements. These events, together with the conscription crisis of 1918, had a profound effect on changing public opinion in Ireland. In January 1919, after the December 1918 general election, 73 of Ireland's 106 members of Parliament elected were Sinn Féin members who refused to take their seats in the British House of Commons. Instead, they set up an Irish Parliament called Dáil Éireann. This first Dáil in January 1919 issued a Declaration of Independence and proclaimed an Irish Republic. The declaration was mainly a restatement of the 1916 proclamation, with the additional provision that Ireland was no longer a part of the United Kingdom. The new Irish Republic was recognized internationally only by the Russian Soviet Republic. The Irish Republic sent a delegation under Sean T. O'Kelly to the Paris Peace Conference of 1919, but it was not admitted. After the War of Independence and truce called in July 1921, representatives of the British government and the Irish treaty delegates, led by Arthur Griffith, Robert Barton and Michael Collins, negotiated the Anglo-Irish Treaty in London from the 11th of October to the 6th of December 1921. The Irish delegates set up headquarters at Hans Place in Knightsbridge, and it was here in private discussions that the decision was taken on the 5th of December to recommend the treaty to Dáil Éireann. The second Dáil Éireann narrowly ratified the treaty, in accordance with the treaty. On the 6th of December 1922, the entire island of Ireland became a self-governing dominion called the Irish Free State. Under the Constitution of the Irish Free State, the Parliament of Northern Ireland had the option to leave the Irish Free State 1 month later and return to the United Kingdom. During the intervening period, the powers of the Parliament of the Irish Free State and Executive Council of the Irish Free State did not extend to Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland exercised its right under the treaty to leave the new Dominion and rejoined the United Kingdom on 8 December 1922. It did so by making an address to the King requesting that the powers of the Parliament and government of the Irish Free State shall no longer extend to Northern Ireland. The Irish Free State was a constitutional monarchy sharing a monarch with the United Kingdom and other dominions of the British Commonwealth. The country had a Governor-General, a bicameral parliament, a cabinet called the Executive Council, and a Prime Minister called the President of the Executive Council. Irish Civil War. The Irish Civil War was the consequence of the creation of the Irish Free State. Anti-treaty forces, led by Eamon de Valera, objected to the fact that acceptance of the treaty abolished the Irish Republic of 1919, to which they had sworn loyalty, arguing in the face of public support for the settlement that the people have no right to do wrong. They objected most to the fact that the state would remain part of the British Empire, and that members of the Free State Parliament would have to swear what the anti-treaty side saw as an oath of fidelity to the British King. Pro-treaty forces, led by Michael Collins, argued that the treaty gave not the ultimate freedom that all nations aspire to and develop, but the freedom to achieve it. At the start of the war, the Irish Republican Army split into two opposing camps, a pro-treaty IRA and an anti-treaty IRA. The pro-treaty IRA disbanded and joined the new National Army. However, because the anti-treaty IRA lacked an effective command structure and because of the pro-treaty forces' defensive tactics throughout the war, Michael Collins and his pro-treaty forces were able to build up an army with many tens of thousands of World War I veterans from the 1922 disbanded Irish regiments of the British Army, capable of overwhelming the anti-treatyists. British supplies of artillery, aircraft, machine guns, and ammunition boosted pro-treaty forces, and the threat of a return of Crown forces to the Free State removed any doubts about the necessity of enforcing the treaty. The lack of public support for the anti-treaty forces and the determination of the government to overcome the irregulars contributed significantly to their defeat. 1937 Constitution. Following a national referendum on 29 December 1937, the new Constitution of Ireland came into force. This replaced the Constitution of the Irish Free State and called the state Ireland, or Éire in Irish. Articles 2 and 3 of the Constitution asserted a nominal territorial claim over the whole island, considering the partition of Ireland under the 1922 Anglo-Irish Treaty illegitimate. The former Irish Free State government had taken steps to abolish the office of Governor-General some months before the new constitution came into force. Although the constitution established the office of President of Ireland, the question over whether Ireland was a republic remained open. Diplomats were accredited to the king, but the president exercised the internal functions of a head of state. For instance, the president gave assent to new laws with his own authority, without reference to King George VI. George VI was only an organ that was provided for by statute law. Ireland remained neutral during World War II, a period it described as the emergency. Ireland's link with the Commonwealth was terminated with the passage of the Republic of Ireland Act 1948. Which came into force on 18 April 1949 and declared that the state was a republic. At the time, a declaration of a republic terminated Commonwealth membership. This rule was changed 10 days after Ireland declared itself a republic, with the London Declaration of 28 April 1949. Ireland did not reapply when the rules were altered to permit republics to join. Later, the Crown of Ireland Act was repealed in Ireland by the Statute Law Revision Act, 1962. Recent history. Ireland became a member of the United Nations in December 1955, after having been denied membership because of its neutral stance during the Second World War and not supporting the Allied cause. At the time, joining the UN involved a commitment to using force to deter aggression by one state against another if the UN thought it was necessary. Interest towards membership of the European Economic Community developed in Ireland during the 1950s, with consideration also given to membership of the European Free Trade Area. As the United Kingdom intended on EEC membership, Ireland applied for membership in July 1961 due to the substantial economic linkages with the United Kingdom. However, the founding EEC members remained skeptical regarding Ireland's economic capacity, neutrality, and unattractive protectionist policy. Many Irish economists and politicians realized that economic policy reform was necessary. The prospect of EEC membership became doubtful in 1963, when French President General Charles de Gaulle stated that France opposed Britain's accession, which ceased negotiations with all other candidate countries. However, in 1969 his successor, Georges Pompidou, was not opposed to British and Irish membership. Negotiations began, and in 1972 the Treaty of Accession was signed. A referendum held in 1972 confirmed Ireland's entry, and it finally joined the EEC in 1973. The economic crisis of the late 1970s was fueled by the Fianna Fáil government's budget, the abolition of the car tax, excessive borrowing, and global economic instability, including the 1979 oil crisis. There were significant policy changes from 1989 onwards, with economic reform, tax cuts, welfare reform, an increase in competition, and a ban on borrowing to fund current spending. This policy began in 1989 to 1992 by the Fianna Fáil, Progressive Democrat government, and continued by the subsequent Fianna Fáil, Labour government and Fine Gael, Labour, Democratic left government. Ireland became one of the world's fastest-growing economies by the late 1990s in what was known as the Celtic Tiger period, which lasted until the global financial crisis of 2007-08. However, since 2014, Ireland has experienced strong economic growth. In the Northern Ireland question, the British and Irish governments started to seek a peaceful resolution to the violent conflict involving many paramilitaries and the British Army in Northern Ireland, known as the Troubles. A peace settlement for Northern Ireland, known as the Good Friday Agreement, was approved in 1998 in referendums north and south of the border. As part of the peace settlement, the territorial claim to Northern Ireland in Articles 2 and 3 of the Constitution of Ireland was removed by referendum. In its White Paper on Brexit, the United Kingdom government reiterated its commitment to the Good Friday Agreement. With regard to Northern Ireland's status, it said that the UK government's clearly stated preferences to retain Northern Ireland's current constitutional position as a part of the UK, but with strong links to Ireland. Geography. The state extends over an area of about 5/6 of the island of Ireland, with Northern Ireland constituting the remainder. The island is bounded to the north and west by the Atlantic Ocean and to the northeast by the North Channel. To the east, the Irish Sea connects to the Atlantic Ocean via St. George Channel and the Celtic Sea. To the southwest, the western landscape mostly consists of rugged cliffs, hills and mountains. The central lowlands are extensively covered with glacial deposits of clay and sand, as well as significant areas of bogland and several lakes. The highest point is Carrantu Hill, located in the McGillicuddy's Reeks mountain range in the southwest. The River Shannon, which traverses the central lowlands, is the longest river in Ireland in length. The west coast is more rugged than the east, with numerous islands, peninsulas, headlands, and bays. Before the arrival of the first settlers in Ireland about 9,000 years ago, the land was largely covered by forests of oak, ash, elm, hazel, yew, and other native trees. The growth of blanket bog and the extensive clearing of woodland to facilitate farming are believed to be the main causes of deforestation during the following centuries. Today, about 12% of Ireland is forested, of which a significant majority is composed of mainly non-native coniferous plantations. For commercial use, ideal soil conditions, high rainfall, and a mild climate give Ireland the highest growth rates for forests in Europe. Hedgerows, which are traditionally used to define land boundaries, are an important substitute for woodland habitat, providing refuge for native wild flora and a wide range of insect, bird, and mammal species. Agriculture accounts for about 64% of the total land area. This has resulted in limited land to preserve natural habitats, in particular for larger wild mammals with greater territorial requirements. The long history of agricultural production coupled with modern agricultural methods, such as pesticide and fertilizer use, has placed pressure on biodiversity. Climate. The Atlantic Ocean and the warming influence of the Gulf Stream affect weather patterns in Ireland. Temperatures differ regionally, with central and eastern areas tending to be more extreme. However, due to a temperate oceanic climate, temperatures are seldom lower than in winter, or higher than in summer. The highest temperature recorded in Ireland was on the 26th of June 1887. At Kilkenny Castle in Kilkenny, while the lowest temperature recorded was at Markree Castle in Sligo. Rainfall is more prevalent during winter months and less so during the early months of summer. Southwestern areas experience the most rainfall as a result of southwesterly winds, while Dublin receives the least. Sunshine duration is highest in the southeast of the country. The far north and west are two of the windiest regions in Europe, with great potential for wind energy generation. Ireland normally gets between 1,100 and 1,600 hours of sunshine each year, most areas averaging between 3.25 and 3.75 hours a day. The sunniest months are May and June, which average between 5 and 6.5 hours per day over most of the country. The extreme southeast gets most sunshine, averaging over 7 hours a day in early summer. December is the dullest month, with an average daily sunshine ranging from about 1 hour in the north to almost 2 hours in the extreme southeast. The sunniest summer in the 100 years from 1881 to 1980 was 1887, according to measurements made at the Phoenix Park in Dublin. 1980 was the dullest. Politics. Ireland is a constitutional republic with a parliamentary system of government. There is the bicameral national parliament composed of the President of Ireland and the two houses of the Oireachtas, and Áras and Newish Terrain as the official residence of the President of Ireland, while the houses of the Oireachtas meet at Leinster House in Dublin. The President serves as head of state, and is elected for a 7-year term, and may be re-elected once. The President is primarily a figurehead, but is entrusted with certain constitutional powers with the advice of the Council of State. The office has absolute discretion in some areas, such as referring a bill to the Supreme Court for a judgment on its constitutionality. Michael D. Higgins became the 9th President of Ireland on the 11th of November 2011. He serves as the head of government and is appointed by the President upon the nomination of the most. Have served as the leader of the political party that gains the most seats in national elections. It has become customary for coalitions to form a government, as there has not been a single-party government since 1989. Leo Varadkar succeeded Enda Kenny as Taoiseach on 14 June 2017. The is composed of 60 members, with 11 nominated by the 6 elected by 2 universities, and 43 elected by public representatives from panels of candidates established on a vocational basis. There has 158 members elected to represent multi-seat constituencies under the system of proportional representation and by means of the single transferable vote. The government is constitutionally limited to 15 members. No more than 2 members can be selected from and Minister for Finance must be members of the Dáil must be dissolved within 5 years after its first meeting following the previous election, and a general election for members of the Dáil must take place no later than 30 days after the dissolution. According to the Constitution of Ireland, parliamentary elections must be held at least every 7 years, though a lower limit may be set by statute law. The current government is a Fine Gael-led minority government led by Leo Varadkar as Taoiseach and Francis Fitzgerald as Tanner East. It is supported by a number of independents including Shane Ross and former Senator Catherine Zappone. The minority government is held in place by a confidence and supply deal with Fianna Fáil. Opposition parties in the current Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, the Socialist Party, the PBPA, and Anti-Austerity Alliance, the Labour Party, Social Democrats, the WUAG, the Green Party as well as a number of independents. Ireland has been a member state of the European Union since 1973, but has chosen to remain outside the Schengen area. Citizens of the United Kingdom can freely enter the country without a passport due to the Common Travel Area, which is a passport-free zone comprising the islands of Ireland, Great Britain, the Isle of Man and the Channel Islands. However, some identification is required at airports and seaports. Local government. The Local Government Act 1898 is the founding document of the present system of local government, while the 20th Amendment to the Constitution of 1999 provided for its constitutional recognition. The 26 traditional counties of Ireland are not always coterminous with administrative divisions, although they are generally used as a geographical frame of reference by the population of Ireland. The Local Government Reform Act 2014 provides for a system of 31 local authorities, 26 county councils, 2 city and county councils and 3 city councils. Below this are municipal districts, replacing a previous system of town councils. Local authorities are responsible for matters such as planning, local roads, sanitation, and libraries. Dáil constituencies are required to follow county boundaries as much as possible. Counties with greater populations have multiple constituencies, some have more than one county, but generally do not cross county boundaries. The counties are grouped into 8 regions, each with a regional authority composed of members delegated by the various county and city councils in the region. The regions do not have any direct administrative role as such, but they serve for planning, coordination and statistical purposes. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.